She stood alone in the snow, no name, no papers, and no one willing to claim her. Until a single dad with grease on his hands and heartbreak in his past stepped forward and said the words that changed everything. She has mine now. But what he didn't know, she wasn't just the last daughter left behind. She was an FBI agent deep undercover, and he had just stepped into the center of a story that would test the limits of loyalty, love, and the quiet miracles we don't see coming. If you believe in second chances and the power of kindness, and in love that arrives when we least expect, subscribe now to our channel and let the journey begin. The wind howled like a wounded animal across the Wyoming plains. Snow sliced sideways through the air, stinging any bare skin and swallowing the sun in a haze of white. In the middle of it all, just outside a decaying warehouse that once served as a feed store, a line of 7 girls stood silent in the snow, heads bowed, shoulders trembling beneath thin uniforms soaked through with cold. They looked more like discarded mannequins than living people. No names, no coats, no future. From a distance, Eli Harlan thought it was a scene from a nightmare until he realized it was real. He had just pulled over to repair a burst heating pipe in the building next door. His jacket reeked of diesel. His hands were stained with rust and cold sweat. He wasn't supposed to be here. He had no authority, no badge, just a toolbox and a promise he once made to his dying wife. Never look away from someone who's been forgotten. The man standing in front of the girls was clean-cut, dressed in a government-issue windbreaker clipboard in hand. He read out names, none of which belonged to the girls. After each unanswered name, he scribbled a note. When he got to the last girl on the line, a young woman with snow-crusted hair, a bruised cheek, and fire in her eyes, he paused. No ID, no guardian, no statement, the agent muttered. "I'll take her," Eli said loud enough for every head to turn. The agent's pen stopped mid-scribble. "I'm sorry, sir. Who are you?" "Name's Eli Harlan. She's with me. You don't have legal custody. There's no paperwork." Eli took 2 steps forward. "She has no name. No one claimed her. Let's fix both those problems right now." The girl turned slowly, her expression unreadable. Not grateful, not afraid, just stunned. The agent adjusted his glasses, voice clipped. "Mr. Harlan, this is a federal matter. We have procedures." "I've seen what procedure looks like when people fall through the cracks." Eli's voice dropped, but the cold in it was sharper than the wind. "That girl's not going anywhere unless I walk with her." "You're interfering," Eli said. "I've been interfering since the day I held my son in a hospital hallway and begged them not to take him just because I was a janitor in work boots instead of a man in a tie. You want to call it interference. I call it decency." There was a long silence. The agent glanced at his partner, then scribbled something on the clipboard. "Fine," he muttered. "She's yours, temporarily. We'll be in touch." Eli reached out a gloved hand to the girl. She hesitated, then placed her frozen fingers in his. The skin felt raw, brittle, but she held on. "I'm Eli," he said gently. "What's your name?" She didn't answer, just blinked at him once, slowly. "Don't have to tell me now," he said. "Let's get you warm." He led her across the lot toward his rusty red pickup truck. The heater barely worked, and there was a child's car seat in the back that hadn't been used in months. His son, Tim, was staying at a neighbor's for the weekend. Eli hadn't expected company. As they drove, the silence settled like snow between them. Eli glanced at her. "You hungry?" She gave a tiny nod. "Good," he said. "I make a mean grilled cheese and canned soup combo. You don't even have to pretend it's fancy." No response. He tried again. "I'm not asking you to trust me, just to be warm for a night. Safe." Still nothing. When they reached his cabin at the edge of the forest, she stepped out slowly, her eyes scanning everything. The tree line, the snowdrifts, the mailbox with the crooked Harlan written in fading paint. She moved like someone who had memorized exits before memorizing people. Inside, the fireplace crackled to life. Eli handed her a blanket, a cup of lukewarm cocoa, and the remote. You can sit. Or stand. Or sleep. I won't ask questions you're not ready to answer. That's when she finally spoke. I didn't think anyone would come. Eli turned. Her voice was barely more than a whisper, but it struck like a bell. I didn't think anyone ever would. He crouched in front of her, his voice low, steady. Everyone deserves someone to show up, even if it's just one person. Even if it's just once. She looked at him for a long moment, then down at her cup. I don't have a name. Then we'll figure one out, Eli said softly. Names aren't given. They're earned, and sometimes shared. In the stillness of that frozen night, something unspoken passed between them. Not rescue, not salvation, but the quiet start of something neither of them had expected. Not love. Not yet. But the first breath of belonging. And that was enough. She slept for 13 hours straight. Eli had placed a folded quilt over her on the old couch and left a glass of water nearby. When he checked on her the next morning, she hadn't moved, not even an inch. She slept like someone who hadn't had a safe night's rest in years, like her body finally stopped keeping watch. He didn't disturb her. Instead, he busied himself in the kitchen. Eggs, toast, black coffee. He worked in silence, interrupted only by the occasional creak of the wooden floor or the kettle's soft whistle. The house was still almost reverent. It felt like something sacred had entered, without making a sound. When she finally stirred, he didn't look up right away. He let her find her pace. She entered the kitchen slowly wrapped in the quilt hair tangled from sleep, but eyes sharper than before. Not fearful. Not trusting. But awake. Morning, he said, sliding a plate toward her. You're in luck. I don't burn breakfast unless I'm distracted. She sat at the table and stared at the food. Then cautiously she picked up a fork. You don't have to talk, Eli said. Just eat. No strings, no questions. She ate like someone used to rationing carefully with pauses between bites, as if checking for danger. Eli noticed, but didn't comment. After a few minutes, she finally spoke. This your house? Yeah, built it myself, he said, pouring more coffee. After my wife passed, I needed something to put my hands to, so I started over. Out here. She looked around the cabin. The walls were lined with old tools, children's drawings and photographs. A framed picture near the fireplace showed a young boy with wild blonde curls, hugging a woman in scrubs his late wife Jules. Your kid, Tim, he's 8. At my neighbor's for the weekend. Thought I'd get the water heater fixed and maybe read a book. Instead, I got you. She blinked, then turned away. You should have walked away. Maybe, but I don't make a habit of leaving people in the cold. A long pause, then quietly she said, You could get in trouble. I usually do. That made her lips twitch almost a smile. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. I figure we've got time. You're not ready to tell me your story. Fine. But how about a name? Any name. She looked at him then out the window. I don't remember what it used to be. And the last one they gave me wasn't mine. Eli nodded slowly. Okay, then let's pick one. Something simple. Something you can grow into. She was quiet for a while, then softly, almost too low to hear Anna. He smiled. Anna. That's a good name. Feels strong. She gave a faint nod but didn't meet his eyes. Later that afternoon, Eli showed Anna around the cabin. She followed him quietly through each room, noting the pantry, the exits, the back door. She touched nothing but memorized everything. He recognized the behavior. It was the same look soldiers had when they first came home checking for threats, even in the quietest corners. "You've done this before," he said gently. She froze barely perceptibly. "Not this," she replied. "Just knowing how to vanish if I need to." He said nothing, just nodded and showed her the guest room. "You can have this space. Fresh sheets, space heater, closets empty." She looked at the bed, the worn quilt, the chipped dresser, then whispered, "I've never had my own room." That stopped him. Not just the words, but the way she said it with awe, not bitterness. As if a simple room felt like a luxury too large to deserve. He cleared his throat. "Well, it's yours now. Door locks from the inside. You want privacy, you've got it." "Thank you," she said, eyes finally meeting his. "Not just for this. For not asking things." He looked back at her voice, steady. "Anna, whatever happened before, whoever they tried to make you into it, doesn't have to define you now." A flicker of something crossed her face. Hope or fear of hope. That night after she'd gone to her room, Eli sat by the fire with a mug of tea and stared at the flames. He thought of Tim, of Jules, of all the people he'd failed to save, and all the ways he'd learned to live with that weight. And now, this girl, Anna. He didn't know her full story, but he knew pain when he saw it. She carried hers like armor, quiet, heavy-stitched beneath her skin. But there was something else, too. Something that hadn't died. Trust, maybe. Or the ghost of it. Near midnight, he passed by her door and heard a soft sound, paper turning pen scratching. He paused, then moved on, letting her write. Whatever she was recording in that black notebook was hers. He didn't need to know everything to believe she deserved a place to heal. In the darkness of the guest room, Anna sat cross-legged on the floor, writing in her coded shorthand. She logged the layout of the house, the location of each window and lock, and a note in the corner. Subject Eli Harlan, not a threat. Possibly the safest unknown I've ever met. Then she stared at the final line. Name Anna, given by E.H. She traced the letters slowly. Not her real name. But it felt more real than anything she'd ever been assigned before. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe maybe this was not just a detour. Maybe it was the beginning. Snow was falling again by morning, soft and steady, like ash from a faraway fire. The cabin creaked under the weight of the cold, but inside it was warm, not just from the wood stove's steady glow, but from something less tangible. Something starting to settle. Eli stood on the front porch, cradling a steaming mug of black coffee, watching the flakes dissolve against the railing. The world was silent, muffled under a white hush. He had always loved that part of winter, the stillness, the pause before life roared back. Behind him, the door creaked open. Anna stepped out barefoot, wrapped in a borrowed flannel shirt that nearly swallowed her frame. Her breath puffed in the cold air. "You're braver than I am," Eli said, not turning. "I like the cold," she replied quietly. "It makes me feel real. Present." He offered her the second mug he'd been warming in his hands. She took it carefully. They stood there for a while, shoulder to shoulder in the quiet. No words, just breath and snow. Later that day, Eli took her into town. The old pickup truck wheezed and protested, but made it down the icy road to Laramie Flats, population 219, and dropping. They passed the diner with the neon Eats sign flickering the grain elevator that hadn't run in 5 years, and the library where he used to take Tim on snow days. Their destination was a small general store with a crooked tin roof and a bell that clanged twice when you opened the door. "I need to pick up some supplies," he said. "You can wait in the truck or come in. Up to you." Anna hesitated, then followed him in. Inside, the heat hit like a wall. Shelves were packed with canned beans, road flares, duct tape, and home-baked bread from a local widow named June. The store owner Marvin looked up from behind the counter. "Eli," he said, raising a bushy brow. "Ain't seen you with company since." His eyes slid to Anna and stopped. Eli cleared his throat. "This is Anna. She's, staying with me for a while." Anna gave a short, polite nod. Marvin nodded back, slower, curious but quiet. "Welcome," he said. "Cold day to be out." Anna murmured a soft, "Thank you," and tucked her hands in her sleeves. As Eli picked up supplies, bread-canned chili, some extra socks for Tim, Anna wandered to a small rack near the window. On it were hand-carved nameplates. Most were dusty and forgotten. Jim, Linda, Ruth, Chuck. One caught her eye. Anna. Plain wood. Faded blue paint. She picked it up as if it might burn her fingers. Eli saw her and smiled gently. "If you like it, it's yours." She held it a second longer, then placed it back on the shelf. "I didn't earn it." "You don't earn a name," he said. "You carry it. And if it fits, it becomes yours." She didn't reply, but he saw something shift in her eyes. Back at the cabin, the snow was falling harder. The radio buzzed with winter warnings. Eli set logs by the fireplace, while Anna sat cross-legged on the rug, sketching something into her notebook. Not diagrams this time. Shapes. People. A cabin. A child and a dog. "You draw?" he asked, surprised. She shrugged. "When I can't talk." He watched her a moment longer, then said, "Tim comes home tomorrow." Her hand froze over the page. "Will he be okay with me here?" "He's got a good heart. Like his mom." Anna looked up. "You talk about her like she's still around." Eli stared into the fire for a long moment. "She's in every room of this house, in the way Tim laughs, in how I cook breakfast, in the silence when I miss her too much to say it out loud." Anna didn't speak, but he could feel her listening. "You don't have to be perfect to stay here, Anna," he said softly. "You just have to stay." She blinked fast and looked back at her drawing. That night, the storm worsened. Around midnight, Eli woke to a scream, sharp, strangled, and then cut off. He bolted from bed and ran to the guest room. Anna was sitting upright, tangled in blankets, soaked in sweat, her eyes wild. He didn't ask. He just sat down on the floor beside her bed, close but not touching. After a moment, she said, "I was back there, in the basement." Eli didn't move. 3 days. No light. No food. Just a voice through a speaker telling me I was one. That I didn't exist. "You're here now," Eli said quietly. "I know." Her voice broke. "But sometimes I still believe them." Eli reached over, and without asking gently, set the nameplate he'd bought earlier, the one she had picked up and put back on the nightstand beside her. Just one word. "Anna. You exist," he said. "And this name, it fits you just fine." She didn't cry. Not then. But her fingers touched the nameplate like it was the only solid thing in the world. And in the hush that followed while the snow fell outside and the house held its breath, something shifted between them. Not trust. Not yet. But something like it. And it would be enough for now. Tim came home just after 10 the next morning, bundled in a too large parka, his cheeks red from the cold, and his hands sticky from whatever cinnamon roll June had bribed him with at the neighbor's. He burst into the cabin like a gust of wild wind, calling out in that way only 8-year-olds could, with no volume control and zero suspicion that the world could hurt you. "Dad, I drew the dragon you told me about. Wanna see? It's got 6 wings, and it breathes fire out its ears." Eli laughed, rising from the kitchen counter, where he'd been sorting through bills. "Slow down, buddy. Someone's here." Tim blinked, then noticed Anna standing in the living room, hands tucked into the sleeves of her sweater. She looked oddly small next to the oversized flannel she wore and the worn rug beneath her feet. Tim tilted his head. "Hi." Anna nodded politely. Hi. There was a pause. Then Tim grinned. Want to see my dragon? Anna's brow lifted a little. I would love to. By afternoon, they were sitting cross-legged on the floor, together, surrounded by construction paper markers and a very unfortunate glitter accident. Tim was explaining in great detail the anatomy of a lava lizard, and Anna, to Eli's surprise, was listening with the kind of focus usually reserved for military briefings. She didn't fake it. She didn't speak down to him. She simply showed up, fully present. Like Tim's words mattered. Later, after Tim went outside to dig tunnels in the snow, Eli stood at the kitchen doorway watching Anna quietly put away the art supplies. You're good with him, he said. Anna glanced up. He doesn't expect anything from me. That makes it easier. He expects you to be you, Eli said. That's more than most. She hesitated, then gave a half smile. He's a good kid. He's got a good read on people, Eli said. He took to you fast. Doesn't usually. Anna's eyes dropped to the floor. I've never been around kids much, she murmured. You're a natural. At that, she turned, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I should get back to my notes. The black notebook sat on the nightstand like a silent witness. Anna closed the door, gently sat on the bed, and opened it to the latest page. Her handwriting tight, slanted efficient, filled nearly every line. Lay out 3 exits. 2 ground level, 1 roof accessible via ladder and shed. Radioactive. Frequency changes daily. No pattern detected. Subject E. Harlan, civilian age, 36, widower. Occupation repair technician. History clean. Behavior consistent with high emotional intelligence. Potential trauma-related overprotection of child. Status. Not a threat. She paused over that last sentence, then added beneath it in smaller script. Possibly the safest man I've ever met. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Soft. Not urgent. She tucked the notebook under her pillow before opening the door. Eli stood there, holding a mug of chamomile tea. Peace offering, he said. I figured after surviving glitter with Tim, you deserve a medal. But I only had tea. Anna smiled faintly and took it. He didn't leave right away, just stood there, uncertain. I noticed the notebook, he said. Anna froze. I didn't read it, he added quickly. But I saw it. Just wanted to say, you don't have to hide who you are in this house. You don't have to explain it all either. Just, you don't have to hide. Anna looked at him, and for the first time the walls in her eyes cracked just enough for something to shine through. I don't know who I am outside of missions, she said. Eli nodded. Maybe that's the point of being here, to figure it out. She sipped the tea. Let it warm her. I lied, she said suddenly. Eli raised an eyebrow. About what? My name. It's not Anna. Not really, I figured, he said with a small smile. But I think it fits you, and you haven't tried to run or hurt anyone. So, Anna's good enough for me. She stared at him, stunned by how easily he had accepted the confession. Why? Because I don't care where you've been, he said. I care where you go from here. That night, a blizzard blew in hard and fast. Power lines snapped somewhere down the road, and the cabin went dark. Eli lit oil lamps and candles, and Tim found it all thrilling, an indoor camping adventure, complete with ghost stories and peanut butter sandwiches by the fire. Anna sat quietly beside the fireplace, the flicker of the flames dancing in her eyes. Eli watched her from across the room, wondering again who she really was. She hadn't run. She hadn't tried to disappear. She had chosen to stay. After Tim was asleep, Eli stepped outside to check the generator. The snow was relentless, cutting sideways across the trees like knives. As he worked, something caught his eye: footprints. Not the 3 sets from earlier. These were fresh, heavy, uneven. He followed them, heart beating faster, to the edge of the woods. There in the dark, he saw the shape of a man. Watching. Waiting. When Eli called out, the figure turned and vanished into the trees. He returned to the cabin, jaw-tight eyes scanning every shadow. Anna was standing by the window. She didn't ask. She already knew. "They've found me," she said quietly. Eli didn't speak. She walked to the fire, grabbed her notebook from the mantel, and tore out 3 pages. Then she looked at him. "I'll leave in the morning." Eli's voice was calm but firm. "No," she blinked. "What, you don't run anymore? Not alone." Her hands trembled. "I don't want you or Tim in danger. And I don't want you to go back to being nobody." He stepped forward. "If someone's coming for you, they'll have to go through me." For a long moment, Anna didn't say anything. Then slowly, she sat down beside the fire and opened the notebook again. Not to write, but to rip it apart page by page, until only the cover remained. And in its place, a new blank one waited not on paper, but in her chest. A life. A beginning. Maybe even a name worth keeping. The morning after the blizzard dawned eerily quiet. No wind, no birds, just a thick, unnatural silence blanketing the forest, like it too was holding its breath. Eli had woken early. He always did after nights like that. Nights when something shifted, even if the walls of the cabin hadn't creaked louder than usual. He stoked the fire, boiled water for coffee, and glanced through the front window. Anna was already outside. She stood in the snow, wearing one of Eli's old coats, the sleeves rolled twice at the wrists. Her hair was pulled back tightly, her breath visible in the air. She moved with careful precision, measured steps, scanning the tree line, noting tracks in the snow like she was born in it. And maybe in some way she had been. Eli stepped out onto the porch, boots crunching softly. Anna turned but didn't startle. She'd already known he was there. "Thought I saw something last night," he said. "By the trees." "You did." "Friend of yours." She shook her head. "Shadow from my old life." Eli watched her for a moment. "You still think you need to leave?" Anna didn't answer right away. Instead, she crouched down and ran her fingers over the prints in the snow. Her voice, when it came, was quieter. "They're testing the boundary, seeing if I'll run." "And will you?" She looked up, eyes meeting his. "No." Back inside, Tim was still asleep, buried in blankets. Anna sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a chipped mug. She looked more grounded than she had days ago. Less ghost, more woman. "I was recruited at 19, she said suddenly. Eli, leaning against the counter, turned toward her. "By the bureau." She nodded. "Graduated early. No family. No one to miss me. That's what they look for." Eli didn't interrupt. He let the silence cradle her words. "I did undercover work for almost 4 years," she continued. "Deep operations. The kind you don't talk about afterward. Sometimes. Not even during." She glanced down, fingers tightening around the mug. "I've done things I can't forget. Things I didn't think I had the right to be forgiven for." "You were following orders?" Eli asked gently. "I was surviving," she replied. "There's a difference." She looked up, then her voice sharper. "But the part I still dream about isn't what they made me do. It's the silence, the way I stopped existing. Just a face, a role, a mission." Eli came over and pulled out the chair beside her. "You exist now," he said. "You matter. You're more than a mission." Anna blinked fast, swallowing hard. "I wasn't supposed to be rescued." "You weren't rescued," he said, meeting her gaze. "You were chosen." You. That day, while Tim worked on his snow fort out back, Eli took Anna to the shed. "I want to show you something," he said. Inside, under a dusty tarp, sat an old motorcycle partially disassembled, rusted in places, but still whole. "Jules bought it at an auction the year before we got married," he said with a small smile. "Said it was her way of reminding me not to take life too seriously." Anna ran her fingers along the seat. "You kept it." "She never let me ride it," he chuckled. "Said I'd break my neck. But I think I kept it because it was hers, her dream. I was too afraid to fix it." He looked at Anna. "Maybe you're the one who should finish it." Her brows lifted. "Me, you've got the eyes of someone who needs a project." Anna hesitated, then nodded. "All right. But if it explodes, you're not allowed to blame me." "Deal," he grinned. That evening they sat outside under the stars. The storm had cleared, leaving the sky dusted with silver. Tim had gone to bed early, worn out from snowball battles and too much cocoa. Anna rested back against the porch, post shoulders relaxed. "I used to think strength was about never asking for help," she said, "about staying invisible long enough to win." Eli handed her a blanket. "And now, I think strength is knowing when to stop disappearing." He looked at her, then asked quietly, "What would happen if you called in, told them you were staying?" Anna let out a breath. "They'd push back. They'd try to remind me who I'm supposed to be, but they can't force me." "Then maybe it's time," he said, "to stop running, to choose something else." She looked at him. The porch light reflected in her eyes. "I don't know who I am without the job." "You're someone who protected my son without being asked," Eli said. "You're someone who hasn't run from danger, but from emptiness. That says more than a badge ever will." She smiled, soft and tired. "You always talk like that, only to people who've forgotten how much they're worth." Later, after she went inside, Eli stayed on the porch. The stars seemed closer tonight. Inside the house was quiet, the kind of quiet that didn't press on the chest, but opened it. He knew it wasn't over, that whatever followed Anna here would still come looking. But he also knew something had shifted. She wasn't a guest anymore. She wasn't temporary. She was becoming. And that somehow gave him hope he hadn't felt in years. In her room, Anna opened a fresh notebook. The first line she wrote in larger script than usual, "I'm not a ghost." She paused, then wrote, "I am Anna." Not by assignment, but by choice. And beneath that, one more line, smaller, but bold. "I was chosen." The call came just before dawn. Anna was already awake, seated by the window in the guest room, watching the frost bloom across the glass. The phone, a secure satellite device tucked in a velvet-lined case, hadn't rung in weeks. She'd kept it powered down. Buried in the drawer beneath the spare socks and the emergency flashlight. But something told her to check it today. When she flipped it open and turned it on, the screen blinked once. Then, twice. Incoming transmission from Director A. Collier. Priority. High, she stared at the message, unmoving. The silence in the cabin was thick. Outside, the trees stood frozen like sentinels, and somewhere far off a raven called once Sharp Solitary. Anna hesitated, then pressed accept. A single text followed, chilling in its brevity. "You've been burned. They're on the move. Stay down or get out. Your choice." She closed the phone and placed it face down on the desk. Not long after she stepped out into the main room, barefoot, coffee already percolating in the kitchen. Eli was at the table sorting through paperwork with bleary eyes and half-buttoned flannel. Tim sat on the rug in his pajamas building a Lego spaceship. Anna moved with practiced calm, but Eli noticed something in her posture. Shoulders, tighter eyes, quieter. He didn't ask right away. Instead, he poured her a cup of coffee and slid it across the table. "You look like someone who heard bad news," he said softly. Anna didn't look at him. "I was warned." Eli straightened. "Warned. They know I'm here," she said. Or they suspect. Either way, it means the shadows are moving. Tim looked up, sensing something in the air. "Is someone coming?" Anna glanced at him, her voice gentle. "Not today. But we should be ready." By mid-morning, Eli had gone to the shed, unlocking the storage cabinet at the far back. Inside, tucked behind old fishing rods and forgotten extension cords, was a locked case. He opened it. Inside, 2 flare guns, a bear rifle with a cracked stock, and a revolver wrapped in oilcloth. He hadn't touched the gun since the year after Jules died. Back then, it had felt like a ghost from another life. Now it felt like a necessary reminder. Some lives need protecting, and some ghosts come back whether you're ready or not. When he turned, Anna was already standing in the doorway. "You don't hesitate," she said. "I've lived through loss. I don't plan to repeat it." She stepped inside and picked up the revolver, checked the weight, the chamber. "You keep it clean." "I keep everything clean," Eli said. "The day you stop preparing for the worst is usually the day it finds you." Anna gave a small, approving nod. "I could use your help fortifying the south window." "Done. And the fence line needs new wire. Motion sensors if you've got any." Eli raised an eyebrow. "Remind me, are you planning to fight a bear or a small army I don't like?" "Surprises," she said flatly. Eli sighed and muttered. "Guess it's a good thing I stocked up at the co-op last spring." The rest of the day passed in quiet urgency. While Tim played in the Snowdrifts building what he called a moon base, Eli and Anna reinforced the cabin. She moved with trained efficiency, measured, focused, careful. But every so often she paused to smile at Tim, or accept a snowball to the shoulder, or sit beside him and help build a satellite dish out of pine cones. She was a soldier and a sister, a strategist and a woman rediscovering her softness. And Eli noticed it all. That night, after Tim had gone to bed, Anna stood at the kitchen sink, drying her hands on a towel. Eli leaned in the doorway, watching her like someone trying to memorize the moment. "You ever think about what comes next?" he asked. She turned slightly. "Next. After the shadows go. After the running stops." Anna was quiet for a long time. "I used to think there was no after," she said. "That you do the mission, then disappear. And now?" She hesitated, then looked at him. "Now I think maybe disappearing isn't the same as surviving." Eli stepped closer. "And maybe surviving isn't the same as living." She smiled faintly, tired but grateful. "You're not what I expected." Eli chuckled. "I get that a lot. Most people expect a grumpy repairman with an overcooked past and no soft spots." She tilted her head. "You have plenty of soft spots. Don't spread that around. I have a reputation to uphold." She laughed quietly, honest, unguarded. Then her smile faded. "If something happens. If they come and I don't make it," Eli cut her off, voice firm. "Don't. Promise me you'll protect Tim. I already do. Promise me you'll tell him I chose to stay." Eli stepped forward and reached for her hand. "You're not going anywhere," he said. "But if something does happen, I'll tell him you stayed. And I'll make sure he knows why." She nodded, swallowing hard. Their hands remained locked for just a second too long, neither of them pulling away. That night, long after the lights were out, Anna lay in bed with the satellite phone beside her. She could call them, request extraction, burn the trail behind her, and vanish like she'd done a dozen times before. But her finger hovered over the button, unmoving, because this time she didn't want to leave. And for the first time in years, the idea of being found, not by enemies, but by a family, didn't terrify her. It made her feel human. Real. Home. Out in the woods beneath the pines, 2 men watched the cabin. One of them raised a radio. "She's in there," he whispered. "Still breathing." The voice on the other end responded with a hiss. Not for long. The knock came just after midnight. 3 soft raps. Not the panicked kind. Not someone lost or desperate. It was measured, intentional. Anna opened her eyes before the second knock landed. She was already sitting up, already slipping her feet into boots, already reaching for the side drawer where she'd stashed the revolver Eli had given her days earlier. By the time Eli cracked open his bedroom door, she was already at the front entry, body low, breath controlled back, pressed to the wall beside the frame. He whispered, "What is it?" "Someone's here," she said. "One of them." "You sure 3 knocks? Military cadence. Someone trained." Eli nodded once and disappeared back into the hallway, reappearing moments later with the old hunting rifle slung over his shoulder. The moment was quiet, but charged like static before lightning. Another knock, slower this time. Then a voice. Calm, almost pleasant. "Anna Damaris. I know you're in there, and I know you're tired of running." Her blood froze. She hadn't heard that voice in years, and yet it hadn't changed. She stepped forward and opened the door, just enough to see him. Agent Fletcher. Mid-40s. Clean cut. Eyes like polished stone. He wore no badge, no jacket. Just a black sweater and the kind of calm confidence that meant he never needed to raise his voice. "Fletcher," she said, her own voice low. He gave a small smile. "Glad to see you still have your edge." Eli stepped beside her, the rifle lowered, but ready. "Who are you?" he asked. "Old acquaintance," Anna murmured. Fletcher's gaze flicked to Eli. "You must be Harlan." "I read your file." Eli's jaw tightened. "Funny. I don't remember auditioning." Fletcher ignored the barb. He looked back to Anna. "You're compromised. They know where you are. You have 24 hours tops before they send someone who doesn't knock," I figured, Anna said flatly. "I'm here on unofficial terms," Fletcher continued. "Off record. I pulled some favors. I can get you out. Clean. New ID. Gone by sunrise." He took a step closer. "You're not safe here." Anna didn't respond right away. Then, with quiet steel in her voice, "Maybe I'm tired of disappearing." Fletcher tilted his head. "Anna." "No," she said. "Not Anna." Fletcher blinked. "I'm staying," she said. "And I'm not going to vanish again just because someone in a suit decides I've served my purpose." Fletcher's face hardened. "You're risking everything." "Him. The boy. Yourself." Eli spoke up, then firm and unflinching. "She's not alone." Fletcher looked at him as if just noticing he hadn't left. "I hope you understand what kind of fire you're standing in, Mr. Harlan." Eli didn't blink. "I've walked through worse." For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then Fletcher sighed. 36 hours. That's the best I can give you. After that, my hands are off the wheel." He turned, stepping back into the snow. Before he disappeared, he paused. "You chose this. Just remember, you don't get to change your mind once it starts." Anna watched until he was gone. Then slowly she closed the door. They sat by the fire later, both of them silent for a long time. Eli was the first to speak. "So, that's your real name?" Anna nodded. "Anna Damaris, former special agent, deep cover operative. Asset tag AD-17. He processed it for a beat. "You really don't do simple introductions, do you?" She huffed a soft, tired laugh. "Not usually." He leaned forward. "You want to tell me the rest?" She stared into the fire. "When I was 15, I went into the system. Parents died in a fire. No relatives. No one claimed me. I lived in shelters, then group homes. When I was 17, the Bureau started a pilot program. Young, smart, invisible girls trained for infiltration." Eli's face darkened. "They recruited you out of foster care?" Anna nodded. "I was perfect for the part. No history, no attachments, no one to notice if I disappeared for months at a time." She exhaled long and bitter. "They gave me names like clothes, missions like lifelines. Every time I got too close to someone, they'd pull me out and burn the trail. Her voice caught in her throat, until I forgot what my real voice sounded like. Eli said nothing. He reached forward and gently took her hand. "I'm sorry." She looked at him then. Really looked. "You gave me a name, not because someone told you to, not to make me useful, but just because. That's what names are supposed to be," he said. "Not labels. Invitations." Her eyes softened. "You're different," he smiled faintly. "Don't let the flannel fool you." By morning, the sky had turned to lead. Clouds hung low and heavy. Tim bounced into the kitchen like nothing in the world had changed. Anna made him pancakes, burned the first batch, nailed the second, and when he smiled with syrup on his chin, she found herself blinking back tears she couldn't explain. After breakfast, Tim tugged her sleeve. "Miss Anna, yeah, bud." He held up a piece of paper. "I made this for you." It was a crayon drawing. 3 stick figures, one tall, one small one with long hair, all standing in front of a cabin. Above it, in Tim's uneven handwriting, "Family." Anna knelt down and hugged him before she realized she was doing it. When she looked up, Eli was watching from the hallway, something unspoken in his eyes. Something steady. That night, while the wind began to howl again outside the cabin, Anna opened a fresh page in her new notebook. At the top, she wrote, "I was someone they forgot to give a future to, but I found one anyway. Not in a file, not in a mission, in a name, in a family, in a place I chose." She closed the notebook and exhaled. She wasn't just Anna Damaris anymore. She was Anna Brooks, and for the first time in her life, the name felt like a beginning, not an assignment, not a disguise. A home. The storm hit harder than expected. By evening, snow piled high along the cabin's outer walls, and wind howled through the pine trees like a warning. Eli moved from room to room, checking windows, sealing drafty corners, and securing the shutters. He moved with a quiet urgency, methodical, focused, but underneath it all his chest was tight. Something was coming, and it wasn't just weather. Anna stood by the living room window watching the tree line disappear beneath sheets of falling snow. She hadn't spoken much since Fletcher's visit, but her silence was different now, less guarded, more resolved. "Can you feel it?" she asked. Eli nodded. "Yeah. They're waiting for the storm to do the work. Cut us off." Slow response. He looked at her. "Then they don't know who they're dealing with." Anna almost smiled. Tim was in his room surrounded by coloring books and building blocks. He had no idea what kind of darkness loomed outside, and neither Eli nor Anna intended to let that change. Later that night, while the wind clawed at the windows, Anna and Eli sat by the fire with mugs of tea between them. She leaned back against the couch cushion, watching the flames curl. "I used to think I'd die with no one knowing my real name," she said. Eli turned toward her. "Now." She looked at him, then down at her hands. "Now I think I might actually live long enough to grow into it." He smiled faintly. "Anna Brooks has a good ring to it." She blushed just a little, still getting used to hearing it without flinching. "You earned it." "I didn't," she said quietly. "You gave it to me." "No," Eli replied. "You became it." The room fell quiet again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence where two people share something without saying it out loud. Anna broke it first. "I need to leave." Eli's jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. He waited. Not tonight, but soon. Before Tim ever hears gunfire. Before you have to look out that window and wonder if you can keep your boy safe with someone like me in your house. "I don't wonder," Eli said. She looked at him, her eyes glassy in the firelight. "You should." "No," he said firmly. "Because you don't get it, do you?" This house was built for broken people. My son's first memories are of crying next to an empty crib that should have been for his sister. I've spent nights begging God to make me whole enough to raise him. And now, he set his mug down and looked her square in the eye. Now he has someone who kneels down to see his pictures, who laughs at his stories, who protects him like she's got something to lose. So don't you dare tell me I should be scared of you. Anna blinked, stunned by the rawness in his voice. You think you're a burden? He said softer now. But you're not. You're the first real thing that's walked through that door in years. She couldn't speak. Her throat ached with the weight of unshed emotion. He reached out, took her hand, and said, You want to leave, fine. But don't do it because you think you're a danger. Do it because you choose to. And if you stay, stay, because you know we're worth fighting for, too. Her lip trembled, but she nodded. I won't run tonight, she whispered. I promise. Eli squeezed her hand gently. Then I won't either. At 2:12 a.m., a motion sensor beeped one short pulse. Eli was already awake. He slipped out of bed and checked the monitor Anna had wired into an old security screen in the kitchen. A blurry figure moved along the edge of the fence line, then another. 2 shapes. No more than shadows. He walked to her room and knocked once. She answered the door in jeans and a thermal shirt, hair pulled back, gun holstered. I saw them, she said before he could speak. They're probing. Looking for a weakness. You think they'll come in tonight? No. But they'll return. And next time it won't be to observe. He looked at her carefully. You're ready for this, she held his gaze. I've been ready my whole life. I just never had something worth protecting. Eli nodded. Now you do. They stepped outside together, boots crunching softly on snow. The storm had calmed, but the silence was deeper now, heavier. Like the forest itself knew what was coming. Eli scanned the tree line. We still have time. Anna nodded. Then let's make it count. The next morning, Tim woke up to find Anna in the kitchen making pancakes. He squealed in delight and hugged her leg. She crouched to his level. Hey, little man, want to help me mix batter? Only if I get to do the flipping, she ruffled his hair. Deal. As they laughed and measured and spilled flour, Eli leaned in the doorway and watched. There was something about the way she moved, now less calculated, less burdened. She laughed more easily. She smiled with her whole face. She was becoming. And so was he. That night, while Tim slept and the fire crackled low, Anna sat beside Eli, resting her head lightly on his shoulder. Do you still miss her? She asked. Every day, he said. But it doesn't hurt the same anymore. It's quieter now. Like memory, not pain. Anna was silent. Then she said, If anything happens to me, tell Tim I didn't regret it. Any of it. Eli turned to her firm. You're not going anywhere, I know, she whispered. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. If this ends badly, don't let it make you smaller. Don't shut the door again. Don't go back to being just the guy who fixes broken things. Eli met her eyes. I promise. And he meant it. With everything in him. Outside, the shadows stirred again. But this time, they wouldn't find a runaway. They'd find a father. They'd find a fighter. And they'd find a woman who for the first time in her life had something no agency, no assignment, no cover identity had ever given her. A reason to stay. The snow had stopped, but the cold lingered. The kind of cold that didn't just settle in your bones. It tested them. It crept into your joints, your breath, your thoughts. The kind of cold that only retreats when something warmer, something alive chooses to stay. Inside the cabin, the mood had shifted. Not tense, not fearful. Determined. Eli stood at the workshop table in the shed, sleeves rolled, goggles on repairing the motorcycle Jules had left behind. Anna crouched beside him, wiring new ignition coils she ordered from a catalog 3 towns over. She handled the tools like a seasoned mechanic, but there was something light in her today. Something not there before. "You ever fix anything that didn't require a bulletproof vest?" Eli teased, nudging her with his elbow. She smirked. "No. But I once built a radio transmitter out of a toaster and 2 coat hangers in Kazakhstan." Eli blinked. "I don't know what's more impressive, the tech or the survival instinct that made you try that in the first place. Let's just say breakfast was complicated." They both laughed, real full-bodied laughter. Not the kind that slipped out nervously, the kind that stayed. That afternoon, while Tim napped under a blanket of Legos and cookie crumbs, Anna walked through town with Eli. It wasn't a planned outing. She'd simply said, "I want to see the place that made you who you are." And he'd said, "It's mostly dirt roads and gossip, but sure." The townspeople were wary at first. They had long memories, and Eli hadn't brought anyone into his world since Jules passed. But Anna carried herself with quiet grace. She nodded to the mailman, helped a woman pick up spilled groceries, said ma'am and sir like she'd grown up learning respect, not orders. At the diner, June, the elderly waitress with the kindest scowl this side of Wyoming, narrowed her eyes. "So you're the reason he shaves again." Eli coughed into his coffee. Anna smiled politely. "Guilty." June studied her a moment longer, then handed her a menu. "Well, honey, if you're going to stay, you better get used to my biscuits. And don't ask what's in the gravy. Some things are better left mysterious." Back at the cabin, Anna brought in the old wooden sign Eli had been storing in the shed, the one Jules had carved, Brooks Family Heating and Repair. The name had been a joke, once a playful dig at Eli's habit of fixing everything but himself. Now it meant something else. "You sure?" Anna asked, running her fingers over the worn letters. Eli looked at her steady. "It's not just my name anymore." She hesitated. "I never thought I'd belong to something that wasn't a mission." "You belong here," he said. "Not because I say so, because you chose it." She smiled, soft real, and carried the sign to the front porch. Together they mounted it above the door. The wind picked up slightly, rustling the pines. Anna stepped back and looked at it. Brooks Family Heating and Repair. No code name, no unit, no file, just home. That evening, Anna found Tim in the living room frowning over a notebook. "What are you working on?" she asked. "My story," he said. "I'm writing about heroes. My teacher said we have to pick one." Anna crouched beside him. "Who'd you pick?" He shrugged. "I don't know. Superheroes are cool and all, but they don't feel real." She waited. Tim looked at her. "I was thinking about you." Anna blinked. "Me? You're not scared of bad guys. You built that cool fence alarm, and you made me pancakes even though you were tired. That's hero stuff, right?" Anna swallowed hard. "It is." Tim smiled. "Can I write about you?" She nodded, unable to speak. Later that night, Eli found her outside, sitting on the porch steps, the stars above burning cold and bright. She handed him a small square of paper, part of an old envelope folded with care. On it, in her handwriting, Anna Brooks, occupation fighter, pancake maker, big sister, mission status ongoing, home here. Eli stared at the paper, then folded it gently and slipped it into his wallet. "You know," he said, "for someone who used to work in shadows, you've become remarkably easy to love." Anna exhaled a shaky, quiet laugh escaping her lips. "No one's ever said that to me." "Well," Eli said, settling beside her, "it's about time." The next morning the air was sharp with frost, but the sun was rising gold and clean. Anna stepped into the yard where Eli and Tim were throwing snowballs. Tim threw one that missed Eli by 2 feet. Anna raised an eyebrow. "That your best shot, soldier?" Tim giggled. "You think you can do better." Anna picked up a snowball and nailed Eli square in the shoulder. Tim gasped. Eli grinned. War was declared. And for 10 solid minutes, the yard was filled with shrieks and laughter. No secrets, no fears. Just life, messy and beautiful. Inside on the kitchen counter, the burner phone vibrated once. Unseen, unanswered. The message read, "Deadline expired. No extraction. You're on your own." Anna never looked at it, because she already knew. She wasn't alone, and she wasn't going anywhere. Not anymore. Spring didn't arrive all at once in Wyoming. It whispered first a drip from the eaves, the way boots sank a little deeper into the slush, a bird call somewhere distant. The snow didn't vanish. It retreated. Slowly, like an old enemy finally laying down its arms. At the Brooks cabin, the icicles had started to loosen from the porch roof. Water trickled under the fence line, making paths of its own, carving a future where everything had once been frozen. Inside, life stirred differently now. The air smelled of sawdust and fresh bread. Tim's drawings had migrated from the fridge to a string of clothespins over the fireplace. The black notebook Anna once used to log threats and escape routes now sat quietly in a drawer untouched. It had been 22 days since the last shadow appeared in the woods. Anna stood in the kitchen that morning pouring coffee while humming under her breath. She wore jeans frayed at the knees and one of Eli's old t-shirts. Her hair, once always tied back for control, now tumbled past her shoulders in soft waves. Eli watched her from the hall, marveling again, not at how she had changed, but how she had become. He stepped up behind her, kissed her on the temple without saying a word, and she leaned into him like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You're humming," he said. She smiled. "I know." "You never hum." "I didn't used to." He handed her a plate of toast. "You getting soft on me?" She turned mock serious. "Absolutely not. I still know 6 ways to break your kneecap with a spoon. That's what keeps things interesting." That afternoon, Anna took Tim into town. He'd been invited to a Hero Day event at the library, local kids sharing stories about the people who inspired them. He wore a paper cape, red rain boots, and a grin so wide it nearly split his face. Anna sat in the back, listening as children took turns reading about firefighters, soldiers, astronauts. Then came Tim. He stood at the front, slightly crooked with nervous excitement, and opened his notebook. "My hero is Anna Brooks," he said. "She's not famous, or on TV, but she used to do secret missions, and she knows how to wire fences, and build motorcycles, and make pancakes when you're sad." He glanced at her, then eyes bright. She stayed when she didn't have to. And she lets me call her family even though I didn't ask. And she fights for us. Quietly. So, yeah, she's my hero. Anna didn't cry. Not in front of the kids. But later in the truck, when Tim was busy playing with a rubber band and humming to himself, she stared out the window and let one tear slide down her cheek. It wasn't sorrow. It was recognition of finally being seen. Back home, Eli was working on the motorcycle in the shed. Sleeves rolled grease on his hands. He looked up as Anna walked in. She stood there for a beat before saying, "He called me his hero." Eli smiled. "I'm surprised it took him this long. I didn't know what to do with that," she admitted. "You don't have to do anything. You just have to be." Anna nodded slowly, then crouched beside him, taking a wrench from the workbench. "Let's finish this thing," she said. "She deserves to ride again." He handed her the part. "Like someone else I know." Over the next few weeks, the project became ritual. Tim would pass them tools and keep score of imaginary races they might one day win. Anna tuned the engine with a precision that once served missions. Now, it served purpose. Eli taught her how to sand chrome and joke with her mouth full of peanut butter. And slowly, the cabin felt less like a shelter from danger and more like a house where life was choosing to stay. One warm afternoon, Eli drove them out to the edge of the forest, where the land dropped off into a shallow valley. They brought lunch sandwiches, lemonade, and a bag of chips. Tim insisted they share, even though I totally could eat the whole thing. Anna stood at the edge, watching birds circle far below. The air smelled of pine and damp soil. Eli came up beside her, handed her a folded piece of paper. "What's this?" she asked. A surprise. She opened it and read, "Application for legal name change. Requested name. Anna Brooks. Requested reason." "She already is." Her breath caught. "You did this. I filed it yesterday," he said. "All I need is your signature. Or I can burn it. Your call." Anna stared at the form. Not because she wasn't sure, but because this time someone had offered it as a gift, not an identity. She pulled out a pen from her jacket pocket and signed her name in a slow, steady hand. Then she looked at him, eyes soft. "Thank you." "You're welcome," Eli said, voice thick. "Though I'm warning you, being a Brooks comes with responsibilities." "Oh yeah, yep. You'll be required to put up with sarcasm, help shovel snow, and attend at least one awkward town potluck per year." "I'll manage," she said. He took her hand, and together they watched the sun dip behind the trees. Back at the cabin that night, Tim stuck a drawing on the fridge, 3 figures again. This time they were holding hands beneath a banner that read, "The Brooks Family. Mission forever." Anna kissed his forehead before bed, tucked him in, and whispered, "You're the bravest boy I've ever met." Tim grinned. "That's because you taught me how." Outside, the stars stretched wide above the pines. Inside, Eli and Anna stood together in the kitchen, slow dancing to an old Willie Nelson song on the radio, swaying like no one was watching. Because no one was. Because this quiet, steady, ordinary miracle was finally theirs. Not borrowed, not hidden, not undercover. Home. The first true spring rain came on a Sunday morning, gentle, insistent, and long overdue. It softened the last patches of snow soaked into the wood of the porch rail and tapped on the cabin roof like a patient visitor asking to be let in. The world outside the Brooks house felt washed clean. New, like someone had turned the page. Inside, the scent of cinnamon rolls filled the kitchen. Tim was on a stool, proudly frosting each bun, with way too much icing at his face already smeared with sugar. Eli stood at the counter sipping coffee, eyes sleepy but smiling. Anna leaned against the doorway, barefoot, arms crossed, watching her boys, because that's what they were now, and letting the quiet joy of the moment settle deep into her bones. It had been months since the first night she stepped into that cabin, since she'd stood in the cold, nameless, and watched, and a man with oil on his hands and grief in his eyes had said, "She has mine now." Back then, she'd clutched her identity like a blade, sharp, hidden, necessary. Now she carried it like a child's name badge, worn proudly and without fear. Anna Brooks. Later that morning, a package arrived. Unmarked. No return address. Inside, a plain manila folder and a photograph. The photo showed 2 men, one of them the agent who had visited her in the snow. Fletcher, the other, unfamiliar. Lying motionless in the dust beside them was a body with a blurred face. A handwritten note was clipped to the top. Threat neutralized. Loose ends tied. You were right to stay. No further surveillance authorized. The name you carry is yours now. AC. Anna read it twice. Then she walked outside, burned the folder in the fire pit, and stood there until the ashes blew east into the trees. That afternoon, she drove to the county courthouse. It was a small building, no larger than a post office, with worn tile floors and a sleepy clerk who looked at her paperwork with raised eyebrows. "Name change?" the woman asked. Anna nodded. "Yes, ma'am." "Legal or sentimental?" Anna smiled. "Both. The woman typed slowly, her nails clicking against the keys. And you understand that once this is processed, it becomes your binding legal identity. No going back. Anna reached for the pen. I don't want to go back. She signed Anna Brooks in bold, clean handwriting. The woman stamped the form with a satisfying thunk. Congratulations, Miss Brooks, she said. Or should I say, welcome home. On the drive back, Anna stopped by a small shop on Main Street. She picked up a frame. Just one. Inside it, she placed the first page of her new notebook. I was chosen not as an asset, not as a ghost, not as a name on a file, but as a daughter, a sister, a mother, maybe someday. A family found not by blood, but by courage. My name is Anna Brooks, and I stayed. She hung it in the hallway between Tim's room and the kitchen, where everyone had to pass it every day. That evening, the cabin buzzed with soft chaos. Eli fixed a leak under the sink. Tim chased their old dog Scout around the backyard with a water gun. Anna chopped vegetables for dinner, while humming something low and sweet. At one point, Eli walked into the kitchen holding a dripping wrench. You know, he said, brushing his arm against hers, we should take that motorcycle out soon. Maybe drive up north when school lets out. Anna looked at him. Us, or the three of us? Eli tilted his head. All of us. Brooks' family road trip. Think we could survive it? She grinned. Only if we stop for pie every 100 miles. Deal. He leaned in and kissed her. Light. Familiar. True. That night, long after Tim had gone to bed and the dishes had been washed, Anna stepped outside alone. The air was cool, the stars sharp in the spring sky. She stood there barefoot, letting the earth hold her. For the first time in years, there were no plans, no codes, no secret signals. Only this A cabin, a family, a name she had claimed not by force, not by strategy, but by love. Behind her, Eli opened the door. You okay? He asked, voice low. She turned. I was just thinking. Dangerous habit. She laughed. Then serious, I spent so long being trained to disappear, to blend, to become what others needed. He nodded, stepping beside her. But now I wake up, and I'm not afraid someone will knock on the door and call me out by a name I never chose. She looked at him. This one, the one you gave me, it doesn't feel like a cover. It feels like mine. Eli reached down and laced his fingers through hers. It always was. Inside the hallway, light glowed against the framed page on the wall. And on the porch beneath the stars, and the sound of the wind whispering through the pines, stood a woman who had once been nameless. Now, she was someone's. Now, she was Anna Brooks. And this was the life she chose to stay for. Not the one she was assigned, not the one she ran from, but the one she built brick by brick, truth by truth, heartbeat by heartbeat. Her name had stayed, and so had she. We'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Tell us in the comments below your stories, your thoughts, or even just a hello. Every message means the world to us. And if this story touched your heart, inspired you, or simply gave you a moment of warmth, please consider subscribing to our channel, where we share tales that celebrate kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength of love. Thank you truly for spending your time with us. Until next time, stay kind, and never stop believing in the good.